All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to look at how two companies can seem identical on paper, but underneath, they're playing a completely different game. And I'm going to give you the one tool you need to see what's really driving their returns.
So let's start with a little puzzle. We've got two companies, Company A and Company B. Now, look at this. They are both reporting a really solid 15% return on equity, or ROE. At first glance, you'd think they're both great investments, right? I mean, they seem to be delivering the exact same value back to their owners. But are they really?
And that leads us to the big question for today. If you had to put your money in one of these, which one would it be? Which one is actually the stronger, more stable business? The answer isn't obvious just by looking at them, but trust me, by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to figure it out.
To crack this puzzle, we need to pull out a special tool from our financial toolbox. It's called the equity multiplier, and its whole job is to shine a light on the hidden financial structure that can seriously amplify or even warp a company's real performance.
So what is this thing? Well, put simply, the equity multiplier tells you how many dollars of stuff, assets, a company controls for every single dollar of its own money that's in the business. In other words, it's a dead giveaway for how much a company is relying on other people's money, debt, to fuel its operations. Now, the math here is actually pretty simple. You just take the average total assets and divide them by the average shareholder's equity. And, that word average is super important. Pros use it because a company's balance sheet can bounce around a lot. Using an average gives you a much truer picture of the capital that was actually working to generate profits during that time.
Okay, check this out. This table really shows you the direct connection between the equity multiplier and debt. The multiplier is literally just 1 plus the debt-to-equity ratio. So, if a company has 0 debt, its multiplier is 1. All assets are paid for by the owners. Simple. If its debt and equity are equal, the multiplier is 2. And if it has $2 of debt for every $1 of equity, boom, the multiplier jumps to 3. The takeaway is crystal clear. A higher multiplier always means more debt.
So, why do we care so much about this? Because using debt, what we call financial leverage, is a classic double-edged sword. It can make the good times look amazing, but it can also make the bad times absolutely devastating. It's a trade-off every investor has to understand.
And the way the pros really dig into this is by using something called the DuPont analysis. It's awesome. It basically breaks that one big ROE number into 3 essential pieces. First, how profitable is the company? Second, how efficiently is it using its assets? And third, our focus today, how much financial leverage is it cranking up? Okay, let's apply this to our puzzle, and you'll see the story just jumps off the page. Company A is a total rock star. It's super profitable, super efficient, and that gives it an incredible 15% return on assets. Its equity multiplier? It's 1, which means no debt. Now, Company B? It's a different story. It's operationally pretty weak, with only a 5% ROA. So how on earth does it get to that same 15% ROE? Well, it uses a massive equity multiplier of 3. It's just juicing its weak returns with a ton of debt. So, this is the bottom line, right here. Both companies ended up at the same finish line, that 15% ROE, but they took completely different roads to get there. Company A got there through pure operational excellence. Company B got there through financial engineering and, frankly, a lot more risk.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Leverage is this powerful tool that can completely paper over cracks in a business. It can make a struggling company look just as good as a truly great one, at least on the surface.
This brings up a really important question, though. Does this mean all debt is bad? Should companies just avoid it altogether? Not at all. The real key is knowing the difference between using debt smartly and using it recklessly. So, where's the line?
The answer is this simple but incredibly powerful rule. A company only creates value for its shareholders with debt when the return it earns on its assets is greater than the interest rate it pays on that debt. This is what we call positive leverage.
And this table just lays it all out. If your ROA is higher than what you're paying in interest, then borrowing money is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It amplifies your returns and makes shareholders richer. But if your ROA dips below your cost of debt, you've just entered the danger zone of negative leverage. Now, every dollar of debt is actually making shareholders poorer because the interest payments are eating you alive. Now, hold on a second. Before we go and label every company with a high equity multiplier as a bad investment, we need to add one crucial layer of nuance here. And that is, context is everything.
And the most important context is the industry.
Think about it, right? A big utility company with massive power plants and super predictable cash flows from customer bills, it can safely handle a lot of debt. But a new, volatile tech startup with almost no physical assets and unpredictable sales, that same amount of debt would probably crush it.
And you can see this in the real world. An equity multiplier of 3, which looked like a huge red flag for our company B, might be totally normal for a utility. But for a tech company, that same number would be screaming danger. You've always got to compare a company to its peers in the same industry.
All right, so now that we've got all the tools and all the context, let's circle all the way back to where we started and deliver the final verdict on our two companies. The assessment is now crystal clear. Company A's 15% ROE is high quality. It's the real deal, built on the foundation of a fantastic business. Company B's 15% ROE, it's low quality. It's kind of like a mirage, created with a ton of debt that's hiding a weak business and exposing its shareholders to a whole lot of risk, especially if things go south.
And so the answer to our question isn't even a contest. The better, safer investment is, without a doubt, Company A.
So, if you only remember one thing from all of this, please let it be this. A high ROE is just the beginning of your homework, not the end. You absolutely have to look under the hood.
And that leaves me with one final thought, one powerful question I want you to ask yourself from now on every time you see a company with a flashy ROE.
Just ask, is this return coming from a genuinely great business, or is it just being amplified by a whole lot of risk? Answering that one question, well, that's the difference between being a smart investor and just a gambler.